Hi guys, Marshall here, and this week for Q&A, I'm going to approach it a little differently. Rather than doing Facebook Live, I'm just going to make one of my traditional videos and kind of call it a sanity check. We're going to touch on 4 different topics today, and so I'm going to pull them up here so we can follow along here. And let's jump in, because Windows and its updates. So let me get this up. There we go. Alright. So this week we got a lot of action on the concept, on 3 primary questions and then an additional one from Alyssa. So I'm going to start out with Alyssa's question. She is dealing with, I wouldn't say they're completely intrusive thoughts, but they're thoughts that she doesn't want in her head. What she says, she describes it as, I'm doing my thing, and then something triggers me and I remember so-and-so, and then I can't get them out of my head. When that happens, we're typically having an emotional response at some level to the memory that was brought up, and there's probably unresolved emotions regarding that person and what happened with them. Now, to get them out of your head, per se, is the practice of giving yourself the opportunity to validate your discomfort. Rather than resist and try to control it, instead turn around and invite it in. Say yes to it. Allow it to become present with you in your world at this time. That will greatly improve your ability to move through it rather than avoid it or try to fix, neutralize, or medicate it in some way. Now, this will typically bring up the uncomfortable feelings, the difficulties, or whatever pain it might be there. So be prepared for that. Be prepared to have compassion for yourself and to practice kindness and love towards yourself, because those things are key to moving past them, because there's some sort of emotional attachment to that individual. So if you're finding that you can't get a certain person out of your head, take time to reconnect with your body, reconnect with the real feelings that are there. Honor and validate them because they are legitimate feelings. Your experience was real. And despite your conscious mind's judgment about that, and the desire not to feel those things, you need to feel. To feel is to heal. And let's talk a bit about what feeling is and what feeling is not. Feeling is not analysis, it's not fixing, it's not judgment, and it's not ruminating on it. Feeling is about making space for the sensations that your body experiences with that memory. When we talk about healing emotionally and we look at the techniques that are effective, like the closure technique, or EMDR, EFT, things like that, they're focused on allowing the body to process its emotions, its sensations, by getting the conscious mind, the analytical mind, out of the way so that we become more aware and connected with the sensation experience, or what's called somatic or felt sense experience that we're going through. This helps the body and the brain complete its cycle or its circuit of going into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and then moving out of that energy, dissipating and discharging it back into regulated state. And so I offer a number of tools on that. You can check out the closure technique, or you can get Calm. They'll be linked below or above, wherever the video is. You'll be able to check those out. If you want personal help with that, I do offer package sessions in that, 6 sessions. Reach out to me and I will guide you in those tools and help you find relief in that. Alright, so that's how I want you to consider about, that's what I want you to think about, Think about using this approach of creating space or holding space for the feelings that come up with those intrusive thoughts. Alright, so the next question here is, why do we choose unhealthy or unavailable people? The first answer to this is because that's what's normal to us. It's what we know. It's what we understand. It's what we're sensitive to. It's actually what kinds of turns us on emotionally. We're like, oh, I know what this is. And it actually has an attraction to it. It may not be what we necessarily want long term, but it's familiar and there's a hook in it. There's this like, oh, maybe this time it'll be different. Or our minds start to play little fantasies like, oh yeah, I can do this, I can fix this, I can help this, I can rescue that. Because that's how we grew up. That is the way we got love. And so when we see an unavailable person or an unhealthy person, it actually triggers a sense of anticipation for love scraps. That's what I call narcissistic relationships, is we're getting scraps of love. We're the ones starving to death because we're dealing with love starvation or love neglect, which is really the root cause of codependency. It's that intrinsic wound to our love that we're really wrestling with, trying to medicate and heal. And we think that by fixing someone else or rescuing someone else or caring or pleasing someone else, we become worthy or validated in our existence to then receive love. Basically, it acts like a permission to get love. And we got to eliminate that by healing the love wound, by restoring nourishment in our love life, not as in a intimate, romantic, or sexual sense, but in the sense of I do love me. I feel love for myself. I feel respect for myself. And I allow others to love me. And those others are safe people. And I know they're safe based on how they treat me, based on their behavior, how they respond to and respect my emotions. So this is essential to codependency and healing it. But yeah, the first reason we choose unhealthy and unavailable people is because it's attractive to us. It gives us this promise that we've been chasing all our lives, that we'll be worthy of love and that they'll love us if we fix, please, caretake, or otherwise enable them in their dysfunction. Second reason this happens is because we're scared of real love. We're scared of being seen. We're scared of being revealed. And we have a deep sense of shame or disgust towards ourselves as being not lovable. Because I mentioned the love wound a moment ago, and that love wound has three components. I'm not worth loving, no one wants my love, and nobody would love me. And when we heal these three components, then we stop choosing unhealthy people and unhealthy relationships. And we start deeply connecting with ourselves again. And then when we are generating and nurturing love for ourselves without a dependency on someone else's validation, we love ourselves despite someone else's approval or disapproval, we are going to be far, far more capable in choosing loving, available people. And for another reason is because we're not going to be running away from loneliness or emptiness inside of us. We're going to be reconnected to ourselves so that our emptiness or our pathological loneliness becomes very, very small, and very possibly completely eliminated. Then, we can make healthy decisions because we're not trying to keep a relationship so we can avoid being lonely. We're working on relationships that are healthy because we want that. We like that person. It makes sense to stay with them, and it's productive, right? It's healthy, it's validating, it's safe. So that's another reason we choose unhealthy and unavailable people, is because we don't think we're worth loving. And so, and it scares us. Real love can be very scary because, our past trauma really got in there because love was weaponized against us, and our brain confused love with danger. And rather than, accurately seeing that person is dangerous, not love. So, all right. So those are the two primary reasons people choose unhealthy people. We don't know any different, and it's attractive to us. And then we're really scared of really being loved. We don't know what it's like. We don't feel worthy of it. You got to heal the love wound there. And if you want to heal that, you can enroll in Heal. The link is below. Jump in. Get serious with your healing, because that process, that whole course is designed to help root that out and restore to you a natural sense of love that's already in you. It's just, trapped by all that shame and the need for permission to feel loved. Okay? Second question. So, actually, the third question is forgiveness mandatory to healing? It depends on what you think forgiveness is. If forgiveness is the relinquishment of your boundaries, then no, that kind of forgiveness is not required. Generally, that's what a lot of people with a religious background, a religious experience, think forgiveness means is that it's a relinquishment of the boundary and that they get to be back in our lives, and they kind of get away with it. There's no accountability. And that is a common definition of narcissistic forgiveness. The narcissist doesn't want to be held accountable, and we are guilted into relenting our boundaries. Now, I don't use the term forgiveness in my mentoring. I use the term closure because I find that this is much more accurate as to what we're looking for in our lives. Closure means I've become resolved with the situation. I'm no longer seeking justice. I'm no longer seeking accountability. I've accepted that that other individual is going to be the way they are, and I'm not going to shame or guilt myself anymore. I'm not going to hold on to the anger or the resentment anymore. I'm going to allow myself to go deeper into the feelings behind that anger, behind that resentment, and bring closure to the real pain that's there. And this can take a lot of time sometimes, depending on what's happened. Mostly because we are a social species, and because we come from an empathic point of view, we would like that empathy reciprocated so we can close the circuit that feels open when somebody else doesn't take accountability for their behavior. To close that circuit means we have to do the work on both sides. And letting go of accountability, letting go of justice is one of those things, and that's difficult. But that does not mean we relinquish boundary, and that doesn't mean we trust the person or we have to interact with them. That would be harmful and toxic to your well-being, so we're not going to do that. But it does mean that you no longer tolerate their BS, you're firm in your boundaries, you're direct in your expectations if you have to interact with them, and you move on with your life. You allow your focus to migrate to another person or to another thing in your life that's more important, more valuable. But that really comes down to closure, right? And so that connects with this idea of healing the pain behind it. And if there's really big pain there, then reach out to me. We'll use the closure technique or other tools on it. Or reach out to, a practiced, experienced, qualified practitioner of EMDR, EFT, or other therapies to find resolution for yourself. So you don't have to carry that burden anymore. But you do not have to let them back in your life, and you don't have to relinquish your boundaries. So forgiveness isn't, depending on how you define forgiveness, it is or it isn't mandatory for healing. I would suggest going towards closure. It's a lot easier. It's a better definition. It's simpler to accomplish because you're no longer dependent on the other person changing their behaviors or becoming accountable or accepting accountability for their behavior. All right, fourth question. How can I stop making the narc the center of my attention? We were programmed by the narc to make them the center of the attention because they always had the arrow of attention pointing at us, and because we gave them that attention, we gave them what's called narcissistic supply, they rewarded us with some attention or scraps of love. So our brain is hooked that way because it's like, hey man, we're love-starved, we're starving. I do this, I get a little bit, I can get some more. It's called intermittent validation. It's what gets us hooked on this, and that conditions the brain to constantly recall them. So how do we break this? We deal with the discomfort we begin to feel when we don't make them the center of attention. That means we are redirecting our attention to something else, like our feelings or what we want or what we're dealing with or what we're experiencing. We turn back to us. We don't turn to another person to replace that spot of the narcissist. We return to focus to ourselves and to our lives. And there's going to be discomfort there because we're no longer getting that hit or the anticipation of the hit or whatever it might be. And we start to deal with the discomfort we might be feeling in that, or the comfort we might be feeling, and just going, I can be me. I can pay attention to my life. I can focus on my experience. I can deal with what I'm encountering. That requires us to have some emotional fortitude and tools, and Calm has a lot of those tools of thought observation, regulation, and things like that. So I'd recommend that so you can manage any anxiety or discomfort that shows up. But also, when you start to really like your life, when you choose to start investing an attitude of worth towards your life, you're not going to need to focus on the narcissist anymore. You're not going to need that anymore. You're going to have a sense of satisfaction in your own world. So that's what we want to go towards. Okay, guys, that's it for this week's live Q&A. Live. But let me know if you have any other questions. Comment below what you've gained from this. Let me know your experience with these kinds of things. And then like, share, and subscribe. Okay, guys? I appreciate you being a part of my community. And we'll see you guys next week. Oh, and remember, you're worth knowing, you're worth loving, and you're worth keeping. Okay, talk to you guys next week. Bye-bye.